The jackhammer struck something that wasn't concrete. Marcus Chin wiped the sweat from his forehead and stared at the small wooden box his machine had unearthed from beneath the foundation of the old Miller house. Inside, wrapped in plastic that had somehow survived 7 years underground, were dozens of photographs of Sarah Holloway, the woman who had vanished without a trace on a cold October night in 2018. But these weren't family photos. In each image, Sarah was unconscious, posed in different locations around town, her face peaceful as if she were merely sleeping. The final photograph showed her eyes wide open, staring directly at the camera with an expression of pure terror. What the construction workers couldn't have known was that Sarah Holloway was very much alive, watching them from across the street through binoculars, her hands trembling as she recognized the box she had buried herself. Sarah Holloway had been the kind of woman who made people feel safe. At 28, she worked as a crisis counselor at Riverside Community Center, her gentle voice a lifeline for those drowning in their darkest moments. Her colleagues often joked that she could calm a hurricane with her smile, but Sarah carried storms of her own, memories of a childhood spent hiding in closets while her father's rage shook the walls of their home. That autumn evening, Sarah stayed late at the center to finish intake reports. The building felt different after hours, shadows stretching longer than they should, the familiar becoming foreign. She was alone except for the night janitor, Robert Kim, a quiet man in his 60s who had worked there for over a decade. Robert had always been kind to her, sometimes leaving small origami flowers on her desk, delicate paper cranes and roses that she kept in a jar by her window. Working late again, Miss Sarah? Robert appeared in her doorway, mop bucket in hand. Just finishing up. Sarah smiled, but something in his expression made her pause. His usual gentle demeanor seemed forced, his eyes holding a brightness that reminded her uncomfortably of her father's manic episodes. You work too hard. Always trying to save everyone else. He stepped closer, and Sarah caught the scent of something chemical on his clothes, not cleaning supplies, but something sharper, medicinal. Who's going to save you? The question hung in the air like smoke. Sarah's training kicked in, the subtle shift in posture, the careful modulation of her voice. Robert, is everything okay? You seem upset. He laughed, a sound that didn't match the men she thought she knew. 7 years I've been watching you, Sarah. 7 years of leaving you little gifts, little signs of how much I care. And you never saw it, did you? Never saw me. The origami flowers suddenly felt sinister, each one a marker of obsession rather than kindness. Sarah's hand moved slowly toward her phone, but Robert was already blocking the doorway. I found the perfect place for us, he whispered. Somewhere we can be together forever. Detective Elena Rodriguez had seen enough missing persons cases to know that most stories ended badly, but Sarah Holloway's disappearance had always bothered her. The lack of evidence, the way Sarah had simply vanished between her office and the parking lot, leaving behind only her purse and a single origami crane on her desk, it felt orchestrated, deliberate. Now, staring at the photograph spread across her desk, Elena felt the familiar chill of a case breaking open. The images were disturbing in their intimacy, each one cataloging what appeared to be different stages of unconsciousness. Sarah's clothing changed between photos, sometimes her work attire, sometimes pajamas, once a wedding dress that Elena was certain Sarah had never owned. The box was buried approximately 4 feet down, Marcus Chin explained, his voice still shaky from the discovery. Right under where the master bedroom would have been. We're renovating the whole house for the new owners, but that area, it felt wrong somehow. Like the ground had been disturbed before. Elena studied the construction worker's weathered face. Marcus had been in the business for 30 years, had seen foundations settle and shift, but this was different. The earth had been deliberately moved, carefully replaced. Who lived in the Miller house 7 years ago? She asked her partner, Detective James Walsh. Robert Kim. He rented it from the Miller estate after old Mrs. Miller died. Walsh flipped through his notes. But here's the interesting part, Kim disappeared the same week Sarah Holloway went missing. Never turned up for work, left no forwarding address. Landlord found the house empty except for some photography equipment and what looked like a makeshift darkroom in the basement. Elena felt the pieces clicking together with sickening clarity. The night janitor with access to the building, the perfect opportunity to intercept Sarah after hours, the house that sat isolated on 3 acres of wooded land. But if Robert Kim had taken Sarah, where was he now? And more importantly, where was she? Sarah's consciousness returned in fragments, The taste of copper in her mouth, the smell of developer chemicals, the soft click of a camera shutter. She was lying on a bed in an unfamiliar room, afternoon sunlight filtering through heavy curtains. Her body felt disconnected, movements sluggish and uncoordinated. "You're awake." Robert's voice came from behind a camera mounted on a tripod. "I was worried I'd given you too much. You've been sleeping for 2 days." Memory crashed back, the confrontation in her office, the sharp prick of a needle in her neck, the world dissolving into darkness. Sarah tried to speak but found her throat raw, her voice barely a whisper. "Why?" Robert lowered the camera and approached the bed. In the natural light, Sarah could see how dramatically he had changed. The gentle janitor was gone, replaced by someone with wild eyes and hands that trembled with nervous energy. "Because you're perfect," he said simply. "All those people you tried to help, all those broken souls, they took pieces of you every day. But I can preserve you exactly as you are, capture every beautiful moment before the world corrupts you further." He showed her a photo album filled with images she didn't remember, herself sleeping in different locations, different clothes, like a doll being posed by an invisible hand. The wedding dress photo was there, along with dozens of others that documented weeks of unconsciousness. "I'm creating art," Robert explained, his voice taking on the fervor of a true believer. "You're my muse, Sarah. Together, we're going to create something eternal." But Sarah had spent years learning to recognize the patterns of obsession, the way damaged minds convinced themselves that love and possession were the same thing. And she had learned something else in her years of counseling: sometimes the only way to survive a predator was to become one yourself. Elena's phone rang as she was studying the crime scene photos for the 100th time. Unknown number, local area code. Detective Rodriguez. "This is Sarah Holloway." The words hit Elena like a physical blow. She motioned frantically to Walsh, who began tracing the call. "Sarah. Sarah, where are you? Are you safe?" A pause, filled with the sound of traffic in the background. "I'm safe now. But you need to stop looking for me. Sarah, we found the photographs. We know Robert Kim took you. We can help, Robert Kim is dead." The words were flat, emotionless. "Has been for almost 7 years." Elena felt the room spinning around her. "Sarah, what happened? What did he do to you?" Another pause, longer this time. When Sarah spoke again, her voice carried a weight that Elena recognized from victims who had been fundamentally changed by their trauma. "He thought he could preserve me like one of his photographs. Keep me exactly as I was, never changing, never aging, never leaving him. For 3 weeks, he drugged me, posed me, documented every moment of his fantasy." Elena's hand tightened on the phone. "How did you escape?" "I didn't escape, detective. I adapted." The line went quiet except for the distant sound of Sarah's breathing. "He kept all his chemicals in the basement, developer, fixer, stop bath. Industrial-grade stuff. Dangerous if you don't know what you're doing." Sarah's voice took on an almost clinical tone. "On Halloween night, he made a mistake. Gave me too little sedative instead of too much. I woke up while he was in his darkroom, mixing chemicals for another session." Elena could picture it, the basement laboratory where Robert Kim played God with photography and human life, the moment when his victim became his executioner. "I poured the stop bath into his developer. The reaction created hydrogen sulfide gas. He never knew what hit him." Sarah paused. "I buried him in the woods behind the house. That's where you'll find his body, under the old oak tree with the tire swing. And the photographs. I buried those too, but in the house. Evidence of what he did, what he turned me into. I thought maybe someday someone would find them and understand." Elena found Robert Kim's remains exactly where Sarah said they would be, bones scattered by 7 years of weather and wildlife, dental records confirming what they already knew. The official cause of death would be listed as accidental chemical exposure, but Elena knew better. What haunted her more was what she didn't find, any trace of the woman Sarah Holloway had been before her disappearance. The scared young counselor who stayed late to help others had died in that basement alongside her captor, leaving behind someone else entirely. The new owners of the Miller house decided not to proceed with renovations after learning about its history. The house would stand empty again, windows boarded up, foundation exposed where the construction workers had stopped digging. But sometimes, neighbors reported seeing lights in the basement windows after dark, the red glow of a darkroom lamp cutting through the darkness. Elena kept the origami crane that had been found on Sarah's desk 7 years ago, the one clue that had never made sense until now. It sat on her kitchen windowsill, a reminder that some victims don't get rescued, they rescue themselves, transforming into something the world isn't prepared to understand. 3 weeks after the discovery, Elena received another call from an unknown number. "There are others," Sarah's voice said without preamble. "Men like Robert, who think they can collect people like photographs. I've been watching them, learning their patterns. Sarah, don't look for me, detective. But when you find the next box, when you uncover the next basement, remember that sometimes the only justice is the kind we make ourselves." The line went dead, leaving Elena staring at her phone and wondering if she had just spoken to a victim or a predator. Outside her window, the origami crane cast long shadows in the setting sun, its delicate paper wings spread as if preparing for flight, or perhaps, for hunt. Some disappearances, Elena realized, weren't about being taken at all. They were about choosing to become something new, something that could survive in a world where innocence was just another thing to be developed, fixed, and preserved in the darkness.